Willow Creek Springs presents Healthy Living with your host, Joe Grumbine.
Well, hello and welcome to the Healthy Living Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Grumbine, and I'm super excited. Today we have back with us Erin Wilkins. Erin, welcome back.
Thank you so much. Good to be back.
It's always a pleasure to talk to you. You got such a great outlook on how things are. I know you see things in a way that not everybody sees, and to me, that's refreshing. I think I hear a lot of repeated, regurgitated thought patterns and actions, and I'm like, doesn't anybody think for themselves anymore? And you always have this way of showing a thing that I'm like, oh wow, you actually put some effort into that. So I like that about you.
Well, thank you for that.
So I was thinking about what are we going to talk today, and sometimes we just have a little chat beforehand and something bubbles up. But this is something we talked about a long time ago, and I always found it fascinating because it's not a real active part of my life. I'm a clumsy white boy, and I don't have a whole lot of that in me. And it's okay. I don't feel called to do that so much. I have my own way of expressing myself in that way. But you do a thing that you call dance therapy, and
Yes.
you're a dancer and you teach dance, and I know so many people that love dance. I know somebody who puts on like a therapeutic dance session at his place. And I've actually even sat in one time when I was going through the chemo and I was pretty weak. I couldn't do much about it, but I watched everybody, and I love to watch dance, but like I said, I'm a clumsy white boy and I'm not really looking to change that. And it's okay. But for many, 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 many people, this is a very powerful modality. I'd like to hear more about it from you.
Absolutely. So, yeah, when I first started doing dance therapy, I realized that there is so many people who either don't want to talk about what happened to them if they've had some trauma in their lives, or just really don't feel comfortable but yet can express themselves through movement. And so it's just another modality to be able to express and heal those traumas that get
Right.
trapped inside through movement, whether we can see it or not. And some people can. Every movement creates a color, creates a
Mhm.
frequency. And so through those movements and through those expressions, you are shining out a bunch of your different auras and chakras, and you can really heal because you're creating basically a song through your movements that can heal on a really deep level.
Yeah, I'm aware of these things, and I know that working with certain medicines, I've been able to see energetic expressions, if you will, colors of things that normally I'm not able to see. And I was talking about this to somebody the other day about the our ability to recognize things. And I said, even looking out into the garden, looking out into the sunlight, we see the visible spectrum of light, or most of us, anyways. But different animals see different elements of that same spectrum. There's infrared all the way to ultraviolet that you can't see most of what light is.
Yeah.
And so people have this, we got telescopes that look through spectrums that we just don't see. And there's all kinds of instruments that can see things that can demonstrate through some kind of a readout what we're looking at. But when it comes to the energy of movement and things, you've got quite a gift being able to see. And like you said, it it creates like the different like light and sound. Light has sound and sound has light, and people don't necessarily see that expression. And I sat with a medicine this weekend and had a really powerful experience. And while I was going through it, I knew I wasn't going to remember most of it. I was like, wow, this is intense and powerful and profound. And I know I'm not going to remember most of this, but at least I'll know it, like I'll know these things that I'm getting. And a lot of it had to do with the interconnectedness of things and how things affect each other a lot. And that's kind of I think a lot of what you're sharing in a way that I don't think people realize.
Yeah, no, I think that, yeah, we talked a little bit last week about being so closed on, and maybe not closed, but just that inability to just open up and see what's just beyond, like, oh, look, there's a tree, there's the blue sky, there's so much going on outside of that. Just, the wind blows the grass, that creates a color.
Right.
Um, which creates, and then that color is attached to a note. And so,
Yeah.
you have all of this music and this sound going on around us all the time. And yet we don't, a lot of times we don't take the time to tap into that and really live. I think I try to focus on, living in the present, because when you're so hurried and you're just so focused on, I've got to get here, I've got to get there, you're always focused on the future, and you lose so much of what goes on around us, and you're not able to just really sit, with kind of like childlike wonder at what's going on around us, because we're so worried about what's going to happen next.
It's
um
it's funny. People sometimes think I'm kind of immature, and I say, well, that childlike wonder never going to leave me. I love it.
Mhm.
I I go out every morning and take a walk with my dogs, and I always find something new in this little walk I take. And I always find something to be amazed at, you know?
Mhm.
And there's something special about that's healing, to be in a place where I think people get too comfortable with their world and they get used to too much that they are experiencing, and then they get into ruts and habits, and they get bored and unstimulated for that
Yeah.
as a result. And then, stagnant water is generally not too helpful for most things unless you're, you know, parasite or, fungus or something.
Yeah.
And in which case it's great. But it's moving water is so important, and I think that's a lot of where that childlike wonder comes from. You ever just go walk along a stream like you could do it forever, and there's always something around that next bend, or just watching the water go across the rocks, or something that's swimming down there or gliding across the top, whatever. It's endless.
Mhm.
And then to be able to see the interplay of these elemental forces and movement, and then you got this gift of being able to see the color and the sound that's coming out on top of that. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and I think too, like, moving water struck a chord here with, like, you have to be willing to up and move and not be, like, I'll have things that I want to do every day, but it's almost like you need to look at what are the important things that need to be done, not necessarily the urgent things. Because if we don't have that adaptability to change and grow, and some excitement happens, but we're like, oh nope, I got to do this at this time, you miss it. And I
All right.
think being adaptable, I mean, and not irresponsible, obviously you're getting the things done, those important things, that need done. But a lot of times I think what's important isn't really all that important, and we need to take a step back and look at that, of,
Agreed.
what really matters, and what are you losing by your focus being on something that you think is so important. will that thing really matter in an hour, in 5 days, in a year?
Yeah.
And
No,
that
you're
is kind of,
so
yeah.
spot on right with that. Like we make these things important that to me, I'm like, are you kidding me? Like what people think about us, or
Hmm.
social media, or some acknowledgement of something by somebody, whatever. All these things that are so darn important to so many people. And I'm like, wow, like you're totally missing out on most of life. I don't know. I had a volunteer come out this morning, and she had been and sat in our sweat lodge before and came to a workshop, and she's like, yeah, I'd like to come out and work in the garden. And so we spent a couple hours together just transplanting plants and talking, and in the conversation just being present and touching the ground and interacting with these living beings that are plants. We discovered, I don't know how many little profundities that, you know, the garden's always spitting out. And I'm like,
Yeah.
this is important work. And, and, it's like, well, what would you be doing otherwise? And you think about the mindless crap that we can find ourselves doing sometimes in the name of it's so darn important. It's good. Well, let's get back to the dance part. I love our conversation. So we always go in all these directions that are good. But I'm fascinated with dance because, for something that I don't generally do. I mean, I literally took ballroom dancing classes so that I could dance at my wedding and not be a fool. That's how bad I am. And it's okay. I don't have any issue with it whatsoever. I don't have a deep desire to learn to dance. I love to watch it. I love to watch people's fluid movements and grace. I love to watch grace. I don't possess a lot of it, but I love to watch it. And I can definitely see, like, I do yoga sometimes, so that's the closest thing to dance that I'll probably ever find myself doing, or a little tai chi or something like that, where it's, movements that are fluidish. And but tell me, like, somebody comes to you brand new off the street, and maybe it's a crusty old stiff white guy like me, and says, I think I need some dance therapy. What do you do?
I try to figure out, why, what's the basis reason for doing this. And a lot of times, I'll do a little bit of soul room work, just kind of like tapping into that. I've had a couple teenage girls who had some abuse that went on, and so I did a little bit of soul room work with them just so that I knew exactly how do I approach this. And a lot of it's getting to know the person and then tapping into what is it that they need. So I've gone from, you know, someone that was scared to even, move to the music, to people that had been shamed with dance, that, they felt like dance was bad, that it was a bad thing to dance. And so we had to get to the root of that shame and deal with that. And so that one was just a lot of encouragement. So it totally is person specific as to what do I need to do to help you. One girl, she was very insecure, and so I told her that she needed to teach me a dance. And I
Oh,
told her
wow.
she needed to come up with a song that meant something to her, create some choreography and teach me. And
Wow.
that was so powerful for her because she came as this, shy little, like, closed up nut. And then she just started, cracking open and really taking ownership of that. And she needed that because she'd been in a place where she felt like she didn't have a voice, she didn't have a say.
Yeah,
And when she was in the studio with me, she had all the say. And so
right.
that was like
Wow.
super powerful for her.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. I mean, I can see, I was going to kind of get into that next, is all the different benefits that you've seen, because I suspect there's a lot of them. It's kind of like, what I call my therapeutic horticulture. It's really anything can come of it positive, because there's so many facets to it, so many elements. And
Hmm.
even mind, body, and spirit. So, but I wouldn't have thought about that notion of having to come up with, giving yourself agency to create something and have to teach it to somebody as a beneficial element of dance. But sure enough, you came up with that one.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, we're also individualistic, which, I think is why using dance and movement therapy is so powerful, because we don't all fit into the same thing. You go to a
Right.
doctor, I've got a headache, here's some pain pills. Well, what if that's not what the issue is? And so it's
Right.
every one of us has something that may, some symptom may occur in our bodies or in our minds that are similar to other people, but the root cause is not always the same. And so that's the part that I love, is, delving into the person and helping the person at that level, because every single person's going to be so different. So you can't ever assume, you can't ever think, oh, this is what I'll do and then this will happen, because we're also individualistic. There's only one of us in this entire universe. So we all react different.
Well, that's one of the reasons I like talking to you a lot, is because you understand that. And a lot of the guests that I work with also share that, when we talk about holistic, a lot of times people think that means herbs or natural something, or not this or not that. But holistic has more to do with looking at the problem as a whole and seeing each person as being individual. So there isn't necessarily a blanket answer for a thing. Maybe there's blanket groups of things that you might start to look at, but there's so many variables involved in the human experience, and there's so many variables involved in the solutions to it, that really
Mm-hmm.
you have to kind of like isolate, what is it that I'm working with? Who is it that I'm working with? What is it that they bring to this? And what is it that they are interacting with? What is it that they need? And most doctors, especially, they don't look at it that way. Like, they come in, they identify a problem based on a series of symptoms or variables that they identify, and then they slide right over to the box of, this is what you do when you see that, and they do
Yep.
it. And it's really, unfortunately, in my opinion, a lot of doctors get trained how to be dancing monkeys. Like, they learn how to do a lot of stuff, and you got to be really smart to be able to learn all that stuff. But they don't necessarily learn how to solve a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the practice is supposed to do. But
Yeah.
if all you practice is doing the same old thing over and over again, I don't know how much growth you really get. And, in my experience recently with, all these oncologists that were stuck in their box, and when I had to literally give them the answer I wanted and find one that would do it, I was like, whoa, this is medicine. Okay. So just finding people in all angles. I've had surgeons on that have a holistic approach, which is pretty unique. I've had all sorts of different doctors that, again, look at a problem as a whole rather than just, this symptom and what that means and this disease or whatever. You, as a multimodality practitioner, you definitely bring that into it. So I think that's where a lot of the richness of our conversation comes from. And again, with dance, you're talking about this tool that can kind of do anything.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
it's
I mean, at the worst, you're going to get some exercise, which,
right.
you get some endorphins going. That's a
Yeah.
good thing.
Yeah. 100%. So that's the way I see the garden. Like, well, even if you don't like to get your hands dirty, well, you can put some gloves on. Even if you don't like, to move around too much, well, you can just sit and get some fresh air. Like, there's always some basic that you're going to benefit, that you're going to get just
Mm,
just by being present, and doing it. So the dance is kind of like that. If you just move a couple of moves, some good's going to come of it.
yeah, absolutely.
So when people come to you, obviously you're looking at it from establishing kind of a root problem, maybe, if that's a
Yeah.
correct term. And then you look at dance as a tool or part of a toolkit, I guess I could say, because you don't necessarily just do one thing with people. What are some of the most common, if I could characterize it that way, issues that people come to you with searching for dance to be a treatment for?
Hi, this is Joe Grumbine, and I wanted to share an update. The platform that hosts this podcast has made some changes to the subscriber settings, and we have a number of subscriber-only episodes that we offer to the supporters. And for a minimum of $3 a month, we can get you signed up. And if you're already signed up and you're having some kind of trouble locating these episodes in the other platforms, I would say maybe the best answer is to unsubscribe and then resubscribe. I'm sorry for the hassle. I don't have any way to make a change, but I'm very grateful for all the support. Thank you.
Usually it has some sort of trauma base, so either abuse or shaming. I think a lot of times with dance, it's shame.
Really?
They've been shamed, they've been guilted, they've been told they're not good enough, or that something that they were doing was wrong. And so a lot of times in that guilt and the shame, I mean, I think of like, like a little kid, if you're pointing your finger at him and you're screaming at him for being bad, one common thing that the kids do is they roll up into a little ball and they rock, or they protect. They're protecting their face, their inner organs, their heart. You
Wow.
immediately just curl inward. And so with dance, you don't have the option to curl inward. Like, you have to be out, you have to have that heart area open. You can't protect yourself and dance at the same time. So there's this real openness of healing that has to occur to heal that heart, heal that part of you that was damaged and wounded, so that you feel free enough. Because when you're dancing, oh my gosh, your heart's exposed. Somebody could kick you or shoot an arrow right at your heart or
Right.
hurt you. But you have to be willing to almost take that step, kind of like jumping off a cliff, hoping that the water's, there's not going to be a rock in the water. But
Yeah.
of
Yeah,
that knowledge of knowing.
I've noticed that trauma is behind a lot of problems that come up in my world here, in just having a healing garden and place where people come to try to find health and wellness. And you listen to people's stories, and almost inevitably there's some kind of trauma behind it, and it's like, wow. In fact, I did a series. I guess I'm still doing it, but we haven't recorded an episode in a while, with an inmate from Soledad Prison. And we've titled the series Healthy Living Through Adversity. And through those interviews I've done with this guy, Juan, and several other inmates, I've learned that, like, some huge percentage of inmates are serious trauma survivors.
Mm-hmm.
Like a huge, like 90 some percent. And if you get in and learn about, their childhood, there's generally some very traumatic trauma that's gone on, whether it's sexual or beating or, whatever, all the horrible things that happen to kids. And you go, wow, like, what the hell is wrong with this?
Mm-hmm.
How is it that so many people have to go through so many terrible things? And then you look at that and you say, and then the ripple effect of all that. So it becomes, I think, more and more important to maybe identify, that trauma is going to be behind most issues that you see in life like that. And if there's a physical problem, or if there's, an obvious mental issue or whatever it is, that you can almost assume, which generally we don't want to have to do, but you could almost assume that, yeah, that person went through some trauma and now they're feeling the effect of it and hopefully finding some way to work it out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, I think all of us do. I mean, even if you're, gosh, even if you're a little bitty baby, it's very traumatic being pushed out through someone's pelvis,
Oh
So,
my God, I say that from the beginning. I'm like, we
yeah.
start our life in the most violent, traumatic way.
Yep.
I'm like, geez, to get squished through that little spot and then have to breathe air after being in this lovely, warm, wet place and not have to worry about
Yep.
shit. Boom. Hey, welcome to life,
Yep.
kid. Here you go.
Absolutely. So, all of us have some sort of trauma. I think it's, what are you going to do with it?
Yeah,
I mean,
right,
they look at narcissists, they most all of them have had some sort of trauma in their life, but
right,
they have their way of coping with that is learning how to control others and make
right,
themselves look amazing. Your empaths have all gone through trauma, but they've
right,
taken that and said, I'm going to let this trauma heal me so I can heal others. And so it goes down to, what are you going to do with it? You're all handed this plate of trauma. Are you going to use it
right.
for something good, or are you going to use it to hurt others?
Agreed. Agreed. Well, so when you talk about dance, you're talking about this, once again, gigantic spectrum of movement, right?
Yep.
So, number one, how do you define dance? And number two, what types of dance do you specifically work with?
So dance for me is just any kind of movement that is accompanied with music, but that music doesn't necessarily need to be audible. So it would just be movement.
Okay.
Uh,
So, any
you
movement
know,
you would consider that could be considered dance.
could be considered dance.
Oh,
Yeah.
maybe I
I
can
mean,
dance.
hey, there you go.
I just
So
have
yeah, I
my
mean,
own
even if it's,
I just have my own version of what that means.
yeah, well, and I've taught dance to elderly people that were wheelchair bound. And so if you can't use your legs, what are you dancing with? You're dancing with your hands. You're
Right.
dancing with your facial expressions. So there's different ways. It's not like, you're strapping on a pair of ballet shoes and going. Within I teach at the local college, I teach line dancing and ballroom dance.
Okay.
But when I do a lot of my therapy, it's usually lyrical because it comes from a place inside where you're just expressing your feelings and everything that you're going through from deep inside yourself.
Got it. Got it. I know people in wheelchairs that they call it hand dancing, where they just, move their hands in their neck and their head, and they're like, yeah, this is what I can do. You
Yeah,
know, I
absolutely.
don't I don't have anything from the waist down, but I got plenty from the waist up.
Yep.
So yeah, so that's awesome. And line dancing and ballroom dancing, that's a good little cross section of things. Like I said, I took a ballroom dancing course before my wedding and I learned a couple of basic steps, but it was good enough. It got me through my wedding dance.
Good.
They didn't throw tomatoes at me or anything, so that was okay.
Yeah,
So,
and I teach a little bit differently. And I mean, you can go to these super technical ballroom dances where, do steps XYZ and then
right.
ABC. And I try to tap into the people that are in my class. There's a reason they're taking the class. And if I can tap into who they are, make them feel comfortable in their own skin and see where are they struggling, I will gear the class individualistically to each person once I start kind of learning who they are and what they need. Sometimes people just need encouragement. Sometimes people need exact steps. But I teach a lot of the rhythm method, which is learning to feel the dance, to feel it inside, and then let that expression go and not be hung up on, oh my gosh, I didn't do the steps correctly. because
Right.
I'm teaching them the basic steps, but I want them to feel free to add their own flair to add it, because I don't want them to feel boxed in of, oh my gosh, you're not doing it correctly. Because it's not a technical class. These guys aren't going on to competition. They just want to know how to dance.
Right. Well, that's good. That takes the pressure out of it. That's for sure. I know with something like dance, there's a lot of technical details that are either correct or not, like ballet and certain types of dance. It's like you're either doing it right or you're not. And but that kind of takes the fun out of it.
Yeah.
Unless you're really good, then I guess it puts the fun into it. But
Yeah.
I suspect you've been doing this for a while. How long have you been teaching this?
Oh my gosh, I've been teaching for 31 years.
That's a long time to be teaching a thing. I suspect you've probably got a lot of anecdotes that you could share about some profound experiences, but I always like to hear at least one or maybe a couple really powerful experiences that you've seen when somebody came to you for dance.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one instance I mentioned where I had the girl that was teaching me dance, that was amazing to watch her come in just closed up, no smile. Obviously, like, her hurting was palpable when she showed up. And I think it took about 3 sessions once a week until when her mom dropped her off, she was bouncing out of the car with a huge smile saying, I can't wait to show you the next steps in the dance. And for me, that was super powerful because I could see her on her journey, starting to heal. And then we only had about 5 or 6 sessions together, but then she's like, I don't need to go anymore. I felt like I showed her who she was and the tools that she had already inside herself to be able to continue to grow and to continue to heal.
Wow, that's awesome. That's definitely a moving experience. Who's the youngest and who's the oldest of your clients that you've had?
I want to say my youngest was 9.
Okay.
And my oldest would have been about 65, 68, somewhere in there.
That's a pretty good spectrum of people. Well, if somebody's interested in going and experiencing your version of dance therapy, how do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, send me a message on my website, or probably the best way is just send me a text. Tell me who you are and what you need. If you're local, fine. If you want to come to see me, yeah, we'll make a day of it.
And you are in Southern Idaho, right?
I am. Yep.
Awesome. Well, Erin, it's always a treat to speak with you. And like I said, you've got a wealth of information and perspective. And I just so glad to be able to spend time with you. I know you help so many people, and it's good to watch you starting to thrive as well. So it's been a joy.
Thank you so much. Been a joy as well for me.
Awesome. Well, this has been another episode of the Healthy Living Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Grumbine, and I want to thank all of our listeners for making this show what it is, and we will see you next time. This has been another episode of the Healthy Living Podcast. We produce this show so that people can share their stories, people that have overcome obstacles, people that are undergoing obstacles. We're building a community of health-minded individuals. If you're interested in supporting the show, please leave a review on the platform you're listening to it on. If you're interested in becoming a guest, please send an email to itsjoegrumbine@gmail.com, or you can send a note into the notes section of the podcast. All right. Well, thank you for supporting this show, and we hope you've enjoyed it.